we got to talk about the man who quit his job to, I mean, this is someone who's like lives what we live, which is just all about furthering car culture. Quit his job to make a documentary about a dead automobile brand. Thanks for coming back to the Autopian podcast.
Hey, Joe.
Hello, everybody.
Ooh, the 72 ambassador.
Yeah. Joe.
Hey, well, Joe, thank you for hanging out so long, first of all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be able to join everybody here.
Pleasure to have you.
Delighted to have you. What is the shirt there that you have on?
Oh, yeah. So this is not an original. This was a remake, but this was a gift from I'm holding up the wrong side. A gift from Vince Geraci. He was a stylist at American Motors. He had shirts made and asked me if I wanted one, and he was kind enough to I even get my name embroidered on it.
Oh, super cool.
Wow.
So he's one of the great folks that we interviewed for the documentary, and a good friend.
All right, so Joe he just released an epic trailer for an upcoming documentary. 2024 is the release date, so there's plenty of time to really dig into it. Joe has been on he's been at the top of my, do I have any questions about AMC? If so, this is the person to hit up because he knows it all. Joe, can you tell us a little about why'd you quit your job? And has it been worth it so far? And what is the plan?
Sure. Yeah. So well, first I'd like to admit that, there are definitely people out there who know more about AMC than me. I think my strength is my ability to amalgamate those people into one place and join their knowledge together. So I'm very lucky to be part of a great enthusiast community of people who love to share their knowledge and their life lessons and their history, because the AMC community is so small. There's definitely a feeling of camaraderie inside it. And the people there are very dedicated to preserving the history of this company. But yeah, to the story of the documentary itself. So I have two partners and co-producers, and I are producing a 6-part documentary series called The Last Independent Automaker. It is the history of American Motors, basically from when the company was founded at the end of World War II, in that sort of post-war sort of chaotic auto market period, until it was bought out by Chrysler in the late 80s. And so that's the bulk of the story, is those decades there. And so we're working together to interview the remaining, former employees who are still around and piece the story together through research and, personal memories, and put together what we hope is the final word in AMC history. And
what you have so far, and I don't know if we're going to be able to play this on air or not, but either way, I'm going to play it. It's an interview of a man who went to look at Jeep for.
Yes.
Well, we'll have you intro it. Let me share my screen.
Absolutely,
and,
sure. So I'll provide some context.
Special.
Yes. So I'll provide some context. So as early as the early 1960s, a man named Roy Chapin Jr. was badgering management to look into buying, I guess, Kaiser Jeep or Willis Jeep or whatever it was called at the time. And he really wanted AMC to purchase Jeep. And eventually it got to the point where Roy Chapin Jr. was promoted to, president, or I'm sorry, I think it was CEO, chairman. And he was like, okay, now that I'm in charge, I actually am going to buy Kaiser Jeep. And so he sent Gerald Myers, who we see on screen right there, who at the time was not CEO. He later became CEO, but Gerald Myers at the time was like vice president of manufacturing or vice president of product, something like that. And so he sent Jerry Myers to go look it over. Go on down to Toledo, look it over, and tell me what you see. And then we'll make our final decision based on your report. So I won't spoil it. I'll let Jerry tell the story here.
He sent me down to Toledo and he said, Jerry, I remember his words to this day. I'd like you to go down to Jeep and look it over. And And I said, okay, I'll do that. He said, then I want you to come back and tell me what you saw. Okay, Roy, I'll do that. I didn't know anything about Jeep. I didn't think much of it. Volume wasn't so wonderful, and the vehicles looked kind of old to me. But I went down and I spent, it must have been a week, in the Jeep Toledo plant. The first thing that struck me when I walked in was how many people there were. The assembly lines were just crowded with people. I mean, a 3-man job had 10 men on it. A 2-man job had 4 men on it. And it was very inefficient. I said, Roy, here's what I think. I think it's a disaster. You don't want anything to do with it. It's inefficient. It's archaic. It's absurd. Then they had a board meeting. Roy came out and he said, Joey, come into my office. Okay, Roy, what is it? We're going to buy Jeep. I said, Roy, you got to be crazy. I've been down there. I did what you told me. I looked around. I spent 3 days down there, and it's a disaster. Their costs are too high. It's totally inefficient. The product is neglected, and the pace is slow. And I don't know anything about the distribution organization, but the dealers probably aren't any good either. He said, I got something else to tell you. Well, what's that, Roy? He said, well, we're going to put you in charge of it, and you're going to make it work.
So that's one of many great anecdotes that we got. And Jerry Myers was a huge get for us to be able to talk to somebody who's actually CEO of the company from, I think it was 77, 78, all the way up until like 81, 82. So somebody who had that much experience, who lived through a very monumental time in automotive history, not just at AMC, but just in the industry as a whole. Yeah, he was a fantastic, amount of life experience there, and that he was able to share some of that with us. And
What
yeah,
year did they go under?
American Motors was bought out by Chrysler in 1987.
87. That's yeah.
I personally,
No, to the
as
big
someone who worked at Chrysler, I don't believe AMC ever went under. I think AMC is still alive.
Okay. All right.
'Cause it to me, it feels like the heart of AMC, instead of Chrysler absorbing AMC, it feels like Chrysler became part of AMC, or they melded, because there's something about the Chrysler that became, I mean, first off, a lot of AMC people stayed on, but also it still feels kind of like the scrappy one, there's something there. The soul is still there. What do you, I mean, am I wrong here, Joe?
This is actually a good place to lead into for Joe. Like, why AMC? I think I understand why, but I'd like to know, I want to hear Joe's take on what is it about AMC opposed to all these other car companies that made you want to literally quit your job and do a documentary about them?
Yeah, so to two things. I'll bounce off what David said real quick, because you're not the first person to point that out. Bob Lutz, in one of his books later on, said something that, the AMC brain power that Chrysler inherited really rejuvenated a lot of their departments, because yes, a lot of AMC people kept their jobs when they moved to Chrysler. I mean, there's a lot of guys there who retired, at least on the white collar side of things. The blue collar story, unfortunately, is a little less rosy, but on the white collar side of things, yes, there were a lot of guys who kept working there. But to answer Jason, yeah, why AMC? People ask, did you come from like an AMC family? I mean, not at all. I tell people the most exciting car our family has ever owned was my dad had a 4-cylinder Mustang II. I mean,
wow.
I mean, we were a family. We're a family of Tempos and Tauruses, and
wow, a Tempo.
Yeah, Tempos and Tauruses, and eventually Subarus. But no, so around the time I was about to get my driver's license, I started reading a lot more car magazines and car books from like our high school library. I would check out car books, and I realized that there was more than just GM, Ford, and Chrysler in the world. And I got particularly interested in old American car companies and the whole cool. Hudson, Nash, Packard, Studebaker, that whole realm. And there's just something about American Motors. The fact that they were like the last one, right? The fact that they made it the farthest all the way into the 80s. The fact that up until, 1987, you could buy something from the fourth American car company. And we're lucky right now to be living through this kind of cool rebirth of a new generation of independent automakers. But for a long time, it looked like AMC was the last one.
Well,
Yeah,
Joe,
we
you're
have-
one of us, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I love it.
No doubt. The thing is, AMC. I don't think the layperson really, honestly, the layperson does not know American Motors Corporation.
No.
And that's pretty wild to think about because it was it was a big car company. Like it was not a small, what would the equivalent be, Joe, today?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that GM was so big sometimes warps our perspective, because American Motors was still one of the largest employer, it was one of the largest manufacturers in the United States, just smaller than, GM, Ford, Chrysler. But I mean, at their peak, they probably employed 30,000 some people. I mean, the factory itself employed 15,000 people when things were busy, and that's, and like I said, then around 30,000. I mean, they had plants in other countries. They had deals to distribute around the world. I mean, this was not a diminutive manufacturer. I mean, there were times where when things were good, they were building 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 cars a year. So to have them just disappear out of the market, I mean, it'd be like if Mazda just got bought out and shut down. I mean, I can't say I don't know what their annual volume is, but I mean, it would be like a significant brand leaving the market. It would be a big deal.
Would you agree? So the thing that always, even knowing how big AMC was, the tone and feel I always got from them, though, and I think that's why I always loved them, is they have this lovable loser quality about them. They always seem to be broke. And they were so clever with so many things, like front and rear bumpers were the same on cars for years. They would just swap out indicators for reverse lights, and every corner they could cut, they did it, but they were so clever. Like the Hornet became so many things. The Hornet became the Gremlin, became the Sportabout, it became the Concorde, and then the Eagle. They were so good at stretching what little they had. And how did
the Pacer door handle, by the way, is everywhere. The tailgate handle, my J10 pickup tailgate, I'm pretty sure that's just a Pacer door handle.
Oh, that flap handle. Yeah, that was, the ambassadors used it too, I think.
Oh yeah, well yeah, basically from 68 onward, almost every AMC had a flap handle. But the weird thing is they're not all the same. Some of them have the key slot in the handle, some of them have the key slot below the handle. It's this is one of those things where I'm not a parts guy, but oh gosh.
Ooh, a new handle fetish I can see coming on.
Yeah. You talk to some of the guys at shows and stuff, and I mean the knowledge that these people have just even blows me away. I mean, down to they're like, oh yeah, well, ambassadors switched brakes halfway through the year. Well, if you get an early 73, it's a Bosch, but if it's a late 73, it's something else. And I mean, just insanely esoteric knowledge that these people have, that just blows my mind. Stuff like that won't necessarily make it into the documentary, but it's still really cool to hear. And the way that they've taken it upon themselves to memorize every detail.
Well, because they have to. When I work on my Jeeps, my old Jeeps, I will find Ford parts. I will find especially General Motors parts. The AMC, of course, all makes combined is a very commonly used term. You will find all sorts of stuff from other automakers on an AMC, and it changes from year to year. It was the weirdest car company. They were terrible with money. They're lovable losers. I mean, they just were.
Yeah. And there was this weird thing where AMC would buy parts from the same third-party suppliers as the big three, but because you'd have 1 million Impalas with the same part and only 30,000 Hornets, people would say, oh, well, that's a Chevy part. Well, no, it's a third-party piece, but because there's way more Impalas with it, catalogs and auto parts store guys will just call it a Chevy piece. So, I mean, there's definitely some of that instance going on there.
But my transmission does say hydromatic. It does say hydromatic on it.
Yeah, and so there is definitely stuff like that. And I mean, that was always the AMC guys sometimes have a chip on their shoulder that they'll point out that the least reliable pieces are the ones they bought from GM. There was issues on the Pacer with it had it was the first car they had built with an electronic ignition, and first car built with had like a Saginaw rack and pinion steering. And they had early Pacers had steering problems, and it was, those GM guys screwed us again.
Gremlins had VW engines as an option for a while, didn't they? Like, couldn't you get a VW 4-cylinder in the Gremlin? I think.
Yes, for 77. It was 77 through 80 or 79. I forget what, but yeah, the lowest tier AMCs, they desperately needed a 4-cylinder, so they bought a carbureted VW Audi 4-cylinder, and put
it in the postal Jeep too.
And the postal Jeep, and I think some 928s and the LTs had that engine. Actually, that engine got around a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, so what's the most shocking or the weirdest thing you found in all this research? What stuck out to you the most?
I mean, there was the time where the president of AMC Malcolm Bricklin threatened to throw the president of AMC out the window. That happened once.
Wow.
So this was during a video I made about the Bricklin. I actually had the chance to interview Malcolm Bricklin. And
cool.
He got into a shouting match with Bill Lunenburg over the fact that AMC wouldn't deliver the V8 engines that he'd ordered, because at the time AMC was building every Cherokee and Wagoneer they could, and they're like, Bricklin's like, hey, I want 1,000 engines. I need to build my sports car. And Lunenburg's like, yeah, you could take a hike. He's like, I'm selling. Why would I give up a single Wagoneer sale for you?
For the Bricklin SV, for the SV1 sports car, yeah.
Yes.
Canada built. Wow, yeah.
The SV1 had an AMC 360 for its first year, and then after that he switched to a Ford 351 Windsor. But yeah, Malcolm Bricklin, if Bricklin could be trusted, according to him, Bill Lunenburg had some choice words for him when he called him up and asked where his engines were. Wow. And so things got pretty heated.
Bricklin, what a
you can definitely trust Bricklin. Oh yeah, he was solid.
Oh my gosh,
he brought Subaru to America too. So your personal cars history, Joe, is very tied to Malcolm Bricklin now.
Yeah, but no, I think you're all right. I think that AMC definitely has. I think part of what appeals to me and a lot of the people in the community is that there's this underdog feeling, right? It's people love an underdog. And that's what makes it the perfect theme for a documentary or a movie. It's people want to hear an underdog story. And there were really times when AMC really was at its best, it was when it did clever things like that. It was when it would share components and handles and parts and pieces and reskin things and, cleverly come up, with ideas that other companies wouldn't dare to do, like the Levi's interior on the Gremlin that had a Levi's interior.
Those are beautiful.
That's awesome.
Vince Geraci, the guy who gave me this shirt, worked on that. And he said, when I went to Chrysler, one of the Chrysler's guys said, we really wanted to do a Levi's interior, but, marketing wasn't sure and sales was like, I don't know if we can sell enough and the dealers don't want it and da-da-da. And so it never happened. And at AMC, it was like, hey, we want to do a car with jeans on the inside. Okay, well, you'll go to San Francisco, talk to Levi. Let's get it done.
That's awesome.
That is amazing. And I think the cars had a lot of charm for the era, too. The Pacer, I think, is a fantastic design. I love the way it looks. I do. I genuinely love it.
Wait, of course you do. Because it's just, that's one of the ones with the, reputation as being one of the worst cars, let's just say, of all time. Yeah,
The guy who designed
but that's charming.
Looked at the Pacer's rear end to design the 928 rear end. They just squished it and stretched it.
That's true.
It had like one door that was longer than the other. They would just do things that no other American car maker.
One door was longer than the other? I didn't know this.
The passenger side door. Well, you could probably explain.
Door.
Yeah, it was like a couple inches longer. I mean, it was like not trivial. It was like significant.
Yeah. And I think one thing that we want to make sure we do in a documentary is that we don't forget what AMC did in the 50s and 60s, because the narrative is definitely dominated by AMC in the 70s, because that's when they made their most colorful, most interesting cars. I mean, you had Javelins, AMXs, Gremlins, Pacers, and all those are awesome. But the Rambler years from the 50s and 60s are significant too. I mean, one thing we talk about is that George Romney, who was CEO of the company, basically legitimized compact cars as a class in America. Like prior, I mean, prior to the Rambler, people didn't really buy compact cars. And I mean, and the story often rightfully so, gives a lot of credit to Volkswagen for teaching Americans to like small cars. But I think George Romney gets left out of that a lot. I mean, there were years where, before the VW really took off in America, AMC would be selling 60,000, 70,000, 80,000 Ramblers, when Volkswagen was still only doing like 5,000 cars a year.
Yeah, the Rambler was a very rational person's car. Like they weren't thought of as ridiculous at all. And I think that's a really good point, because they did define compact cars in America. They made them something that wasn't just like a sports car. Yeah. And they pioneered unibodies. They did all kinds of interesting stuff actually back in the day.
Yeah.
Joe, we're going to find out soon.
Joe, you interview, I saw in your trailer, you interview Mitt Romney. Is that right?
Yes, we actually managed to get Mitt Romney in what was probably the only interview he's done that wasn't about politics. So we kept it strictly about the cars. But yes, so all of the credit for that goes to my co-producer, Pat Foster. He has written 30 some books and like 800 some magazine articles. He's a prolific writer and automotive historian, and he's written about AMC for years. He actually knew George Romney personally, and back in the 80s and 90s befriended him and had the foresight to interview him back then. And he became acquainted with Mitt. And so he was able to kind of call in a favor for us and get in touch with Mitt's, secretary and say, hey, can you set us up? Can you, get us an interview? And so we had 35 minutes. We drove down to DC and did the whole rigmarole and went through security and managed to interview Senator Romney. And that was really cool to be able to hear from him what it was like growing up the son of, somebody who ran a car company. I think that's a pretty unique life experience, especially AMC.
Yeah, what a great catch there. Super
huge
cool.
Get. Yeah, huge get. That's epic. Like to hear from a senator about cars and not politics.
Just the idea that you rolled up there with zero intention of talking anything political is just amazing. All you want to talk about are Ramblers. Like that's fantastic. I love it.
You're right. It was a very surreal experience. Like, we're unloading our camera equipment. I'm there and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, I bought this blazer at Goodwill. I'm like, because I'm dressed up and trying to look nice. And I'm thinking, I bought this jacket at Goodwill, and I'm like,
that feels on brand for AMC though. I think.
Absolutely.
Yes. And for the Autopian as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, we're unpacking all of our stuff and, getting our extension cords and all that stuff set up. And of course in DC, like everybody is gorgeous. It was so bizarre. Like every person, there were just people jogging and biking and running everywhere, and they all are absolutely gorgeous. And I'm like, I feel very out of place. It's like, hey, you want to talk about Pacers?
It's perfect.
Pick up any jogger you want in DC with that line. I guarantee you.
That's right. Yeah, definitely check out Joe Ligo's trailer. It is it's going to be crowdfunded, right? Entirely, right? So we're going to
not entirely, but we kind of need, this is kind of like our, we've gotten to the point where we need a boost to get to the next stage. Yes. Woo. So we need a boost to take this to the next stage. What we're trying to do is we're working with a PBS station, Maryland Public Television. We're going to hopefully distribute it on public television, but to get us to the next stage of production, we've launched a crowdfunding campaign on GoFundMe that has blown me out of the water on how popular it's been. I've been thrilled. I'm so incredibly grateful for everyone's generosity. But yeah, so we're raising money that's going to help us get to the next step of our production, finish shooting interviews and start shooting footage of cars, that kind of thing. Those are some of the big expenses we face. And then of course, licensing a lot of old material, commercials and old footage of, cars and highways in Detroit and that kind of stuff. So we're doing the full Ken Burns thing here, and we want it to be really good.
So wait, how do you find you on GoFundMe? I want to help you plug here,
Sure. So if you search The Last Independent Automaker, you'll find us. You'll find the video on YouTube.
Oh, good thing I asked. Nobody would have looked that way.
Yes. So so search The Last Independent Automaker is the name of it. And then the YouTube video has a link to the GoFundMe in the description. And then we also have a website, which is actually called AmericanMotorsMovie.com. So that's kind of our fun little place where you can watch the trailer and read about us and learn some more about the project. And there's links there that send you everywhere.
So
we'll
cool.
put links in here too in the description of the video, and we have of course, the article on the Autopian that links to everything.
Another article that Joe wrote for us that will be published soon. I'm going to read the
All
headline.
right.
This is good.
How American Motors employees ended up in a sleazy 1970s movie about sex, violence, and a 30-mile-per-gallon turbine engine car.
Ooh, stay tuned.
60 mile per gallon.
Oh, did I say it says 60? Yeah, I said 30. It says 60. Anyway, it's going to be epic. And get ready to see it on the Autopian. So, Joe, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is great, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Autopian podcast. Come back next week. It will be epic.